Good morning. I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and I am excited to be here today for the next hour, to spend the next hour with you answering your questions, talking about some random topics and some board games, Stonemaier Games related topics, including a little reveal that I'll get to pretty soon, I think. Where should we jump in today? I see Carlos is on top of it. Carlos has some questions out of the gate. So why don't I answer a few questions that I see here, and then I'll jump into a variety of other topics. So Carlos mentions that Thomas Lehman has mentioned that a publisher approached him to work with them, and that was how Res Arcana started. He mentioned that he found the process liberating. He says, would you consider reaching out to designers that you want to work with, or do you think it's better if designers reach out to companies using their submission process? In general, I think the submission process is the way to go. However, I have reached out to certain designers that I really admire, a few really well-known designers that I've kind of left an open door and said, hey, I'd love to work with you on a project in the future, and to let me know if you ever do that. I've heard back from some of those designers. I also have reached out to specific, I would say lesser known designers, because I think they're really talented and I want to elevate them and I like working with them. Connie Vogelman is an example of that. I worked with Connie on Apiary. She was the designer of Apiary, and I thought she was so incredible on Apiary that when we were discussing making a heavier version of Wingspan with a bunch of new mechanisms and a new theme, what ended up being Wormspan, Connie was at the top of my list. So I reached out to Connie and asked her if she would want to work on that. There's also at least one other game where I reached out to specific designers, even with an idea. I said, here's an idea that I have that I think you would do really well with running with this idea. And that has sometimes worked out and sometimes not worked out. I think part of that is less about the designers and more about me applying an idea to other designers rather than having them come up with something that they're excited about. Although it did work out really well with Connie and Wormspan, and even another game that Connie is working on. Trying to think of other examples from our games for because this is something that I definitely keep in mind. If we have a game that I don't feel that I'm equipped to design, or I think that someone could do better at, or I don't have the time, whatever the case may be, or I just want to work with someone who I think is awesome. I do this with artists as well, but I'll scroll through our list of games right now to see. Libertalia Winds of Galecrest was not really like this because the platform, the foundation for the game already existed, but it was fun to reach out to Paolo to see if he wanted to work with me. I do know we have a project coming up where I will be reaching out to a specific designer in the hopes that they will work on this project. I'm not seeing any others on the list here. Rolling Realms is kind of an example of this in a way, where with Rolling Realms, I have, with all the promo packs inspired by other games, sometimes the designers of those games have created the foundation again for a promo realm, and sometimes they haven't. Sometimes they just wanted us to run with it. So yeah. Also, Carlos had a follow-up question. How important do you think it is for a company like Stonemaier to have published titles of established designers? I would say not really important at all. For me, it's more about who I think. It's about a couple different things, but I would say it is not important to us to have like name brand designers on our games. I'm more interested in the quality of the games, the quality of the people that we work with, and finding the right person for the right project. And really part of it too is I think there is value in elevating people who haven't already had those opportunities. People who don't have a published game to their name, or who are flying under the radar and would love to have a published game. In fact, even as I'm saying that, I'm thinking of another example of an amazing designer who has a few published games, but is not a big household name at this point among the gaming community. And I reached out to this person and said, hey, I would love to publish a game from you. Let me know what you're working on. So yeah, great question to start off the day with about game design. See a lot of people here talking about or referring to, I think, Geekway to the West, which starts tomorrow. This is a big convention in St. Louis. If you haven't heard of it, it is too late to sign up for it at this point, but you can maybe get on the waiting list for next year. Not the waiting list, but the list to hear about it next year. It is a convention in St. Louis where you just come and play games for 4 days. I have no direct connection to it other than I donate games, or Stonemaier Games donates games to their Play and Win section. They are the originator of the Play and Win system that you see at many conventions now today. That started with Geekway when it was much smaller many, many years ago. It's now a few thousand people. And it's a wonderful, welcoming, inclusive, playing game focused convention that I just have a blast at. They also do have a small vendor hall. It's not really the focus of the convention, but they do have vendors and publishers that can come and showcase their games there. And Stonemaier Games does have a booth. It'll be run by Dave, and I believe my friend Pete will be there a little bit. Austin will be there, someone who's helped out with replacement parts. I will certainly drop by and hang out at the booth for a little bit. But if you want to check out any of our games, you can go to the booth and check them out. It's not just a booth focused on selling things. It's also a booth where if you want to learn about a game or learn how to play a game, you can even go to the booth and we'll try to help you out there. We also will have our disc golf disc there. We'll have some of the latest promos there, including the Vantage Metal coins that just came in the US. Those will be there. And you can even order on our web store in advance for picking up things at the convention. You can order through Friday, I believe like Friday at noon, and then you can pick up the next day at our booth. So feel free to do that, or just drop by the booth to see what we have there if you want to check it out. But yeah, I'm really excited about Geekway. I'm really excited just to play a bunch of games there. So Mark says, is the Expeditions expansion going to be revealed today? And yeah, I thought, so next week, next Wednesday is actually the day that I'll do the full reveal for what the expansion includes. But I thought I would just briefly show you what the box looks like. So this is the Expeditions expansion. There are two versions, the Ironclad edition and the standard version. The name of the expansion is Gears of Corruption. You may have seen this box if you subscribe to Expeditions and the Scythe, the newsletter, but you probably hadn't seen the name. I don't think I had revealed the name yet. This is the Gears of Corruption expansion. It is designed, it's a pretty small box, but we packed a lot into this box, and it is designed for everything to fit into the original insert of the original game. So I really look forward to revealing what's in this expansion next week. Wednesday, May 22nd is when I'll do the full reveal. And that full reveal will happen, just to make sure you know, I'll reveal it through the Expeditions and Scythe newsletter and on our website and Board Game Geek and the Expeditions Facebook group. There won't be a general broad monthly newsletter next week. I'm going to save that for June 5th, which is when we'll launch the game on our web store. We'll launch the expansion on our web store. But yeah, that is today's reveal. I thought you all could get a little live reveal here of the name of the expansion, Expeditions Gears of Corruption. Austin says, will the release of the Expeditions expansion coincide with the reprint of Tapestry Arts and Architecture? I totally understand also that you want to consolidate orders, but no, the Arts and Architecture expansion reprint and the Tapestry revised Civ Pack, those are both kind of on the same trajectory. They'll be ready later this summer. Reprints usually take around 4 to 5 months. Yeah, just didn't happen to coincide with this expansion. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. See, Chris is excited about Geekway. I'm excited to see Chris and his game Kraken Skulls at Geekway. I got to play the prototype version of it last year. I have the copy on my shelf right now that I backed on Kickstarter. Chris will have more copies at his booth. That's Kraken Skulls. And I had a lot of fun, even with the prototype version of it at Geekway last year. I'm really excited to play the final version and see what tweaks and adjustments Chris made to it over the last year. Ooh, Patrick's going to bring Waffle Time. I really want to play Waffle Time with you, Patrick. Let's do that. Let's definitely play Waffle Time. In fact, I was making notes on my phone about who I'm playing games with. I don't schedule things at Geekway. I found that scheduling leads to some complicated situations where you're like playing a game, but you feel like you need to rush so that you can get to the game that you scheduled, or you finish a game much earlier than a game that you scheduled, and then you don't know what to do. Like, do you just hang out for a little while, which is fine. But Patrick, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let me find my, okay, here we go. I have you on my list here, Patrick. Waffle Time. I will be hanging out mostly, I think, in the main hall at Geekway, the big main hall. And I'll be wearing a bright orange shirt. I should be fairly easy to see unless a lot of other people are wearing bright orange Stonemaier shirts. Jeff asked about the chocolate of the day. In fact, I'm doing the thing I always do and forgetting to post the questions. There it is. First question posted, 10:09. Took me 9 minutes today to remember to post the question on the screen. Jeff said, what's my chocolate of the day? You know, I'm still really enjoying, I'm trying to dabble a little bit more into dark chocolate, and I'm really, really enjoying the dark chocolate wafers. I almost said nibs, but I think they're wafers. Yeah, they're not nibs. They're definitely different than nibs. They're dark chocolate wafers from Kakao here in St. Louis. That's K-O-K-A-O. K-A-K-A-O. Yeah, Kakao. And they're delicious. They're really, really good. And I feel like they're slightly, all versions of chocolate have health benefits, but the more sugar you put into it, the less healthy chocolate is. And so dark chocolate, this is, I believe, 70 or 77% dark chocolate, a little less sugar in it. And I'm really enjoying them. And Jeff says, how many of the 700 locations in Vantage, actually, they're closer to 800 locations in Vantage. How many of them can you actually start on? So in Vantage, at the beginning of this game, Vantage, my big open world cooperative game, you start the game by crash landing on the planet far from your other crew members. So plays up to 6 players, you crash land on at least 6 different locations based on your crew members. There are a little over 100 different locations where you can crash land on. The question there may be, why not all of them? And part of that, I think you'll understand when you play the game. Part of that is, mostly you'll have to understand that after I explain a little bit more about the game. But it's a randomization element using 2 dice at the beginning of the game, basically 2 dice per player based on a certain location where you start out with, where each player starts out with at the beginning of the game as you crash land on the planet. So, it's a little over 100 locations. Garrett says, do you have a video or blog like top 10 most memorable moments I've had in board gaming? I'm curious what some of your favorite and unforgettable moments in designing, publishing, and playing are. Garrett, I love designing around memorable moments. And let me see on YouTube. I feel like I have done something like this. I'm going to search for the word memorable on my YouTube channel just to see. Let's see. Memorable. I do. Okay, 4 years ago. So I might need to do a refresh video about this, but I have a video about my top 16 most memorable moments in tabletop gaming. If you search my YouTube channel for the word memorable, this should pop up at the top of the list. There's also great games featuring memorable written stories, a much more recent video. But yeah, top 16 most memorable moments in tabletop gaming. Looks like I filmed this at my old condo, so this video is a little old. I mentioned games. I mentioned the games real quick because I think if you're curious about this, you might still want to hear the stories that I talk about. Talk about Just One, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Yedo, The Seventh Continent, Summit, Seven Wonders Duel, QE, Time Stories, The Rise of Queensdale, Ra, Risk Legacy, Magic the Gathering, Twilight, Struggle, Hanabi, A Fake Artist Goes to New York, and Scotland Yard. And I will share this. Well, I don't think you need to see it on the other screen, but you can go to the YouTube channel and check out, look for the word memorable. But yeah, I love memorable moments in gaming. And, that wasn't my question of the day. I have a different question of the day, but let me ask that to all of you. Do you have, in recent memory, well, no, that's not too recent memory. Do you have something that's not recent that has stuck with you, that when you think back about gaming or a specific game, you have a very specific memory? It's a wide open question. You can answer that however you want. Because in my mind, like, there are a lot of games that kind of push together in my head. I love Terra Mystica, but I can't really remember one specific session of Terra Mystica. There might be one that stands out, but played it like 30, 40 times. They all kind of mix together, and I still love the game. But there are also other games where I've had those moments where they just stick with me for a long, long time. I love those moments in games, or when games are designed around those moments, as I did with Charterstone, The Rise of Fenris. Those are designed around memorable moments. Ian had a similar question to someone. Any idea when the Civilization Pack, the revised Civ Pack, will be available again? We're looking at late summer in the US. So in about 3 months, I think, maybe 3 or 4 months at most. Andrew says, where's the shirt from? So this is, every other year we do a Stonemaier Champion shirt that is hex-based like this, or at least has icons from a bunch of our games. And this is such a shirt from like 3 or 4 years ago. You can see, so this was a reference. So these are the games that we hadn't published at the time. This was a reference to Red Rising. This was a reference to Pendulum. This was a reference to Vantage. So yeah, you can see I've been working on Vantage for a long time. This is a game that didn't end up working out, so we didn't end up publishing that one. And these are all games that we had published at the time. This shirt is no longer available. We only do one printing of each champion t-shirt. But if you are a champion, we will fairly soon poll champions to see who wants t-shirts this year, and we'll show them what the t-shirt looks like. And yeah, we'll move forward with the shirt. In fact, I might do a little update for myself to check on the status of the shirt for the designers working on it this year. Austin says, will metal miniatures for the base Expeditions game be released alongside the expansion in case we want to upgrade our standard version to Ironclad? We actually did it the other way, Austin. We will have plastic miniatures available but not standalone metal versions. I don't foresee us doing that necessarily unless there's a lot of interest in us doing it. And we might poll interest in doing that. I'll make a note about that, to poll interest in it. But I think we may have done that before, and there just wasn't enough interest to do just the metal miniatures. But I'll make a note of it. But they certainly will not be available for the launch of the expansion. Mark says, will there be other releases along with the Expeditions expansion? No, just the Expeditions expansion, both versions of the Expeditions expansion, and I think that's it. And some and the plastic minis. Yeah. Josh says, you mean I shouldn't have brought my bright orange shirt? If you're a Stonemaier ambassador and you have a bright orange shirt, you're welcome to wear the shirt. If you do, people might ask you questions about games, or you might offer people some, you might welcome people into our games as they're walking around Geekway, but you're absolutely welcome to do that, Josh. Maybe you will get confused with me, and you can just let people know that you're not me. Michelle is bringing Imperial Miners and the White Castle. Michelle, thank you so much for doing that. I would love to play. It sounds like Patrick's bringing Imperial Miners, but I would love to play the White Castle with you. That has been on my list for a long time. I'm going to make a note of that. Where is that one? It should be at the top of my list. The White Castle. I'm going to say, play this with Michelle. Michelle, that would be amazing. I do know at Geekway, I only have one thing planned. And actually, the one thing I'm open to playing at Geekway is like the first game, the game upon arrival at the convention, because I can control when I'm going to arrive. I can't control what happens at the rest of the convention. I can't control how long games take. But I do know on Thursday, I am playing at, I believe it's 11:45. I am playing Castles of Mech and Ludwig, the Colossal version. This is a game that I know I love, but I haven't played the Colossal version, and my friend Chance is going to bring it to Geekway. So if anyone wants to play the Colossal version of Castles of Mech and Ludwig, I can't necessarily, I don't think I can reserve slots for you, but try to find us in the main hall on Thursday at 11:45, and we'll be playing that. And I think there will be a few seats available, at least at the beginning. It plays up to 5. So if you're excited to play that, Thursday, tomorrow, 11:45 at Geekway. Let's see. Didi says, I'm anxiously waiting to hear an announcement today for finalists in a local game design contest. When was the last time, if any, a Stonemaier game was entered in a contest? I don't think we ever have done that. There are certainly big game awards and things like that. No, we have done that. We did it for Mensa years ago. I had a little Mensa rant last week. And I think I realized then, or soon after, that awards are not something that motivates me. It certainly feels good for a moment when one of our games gets selected for an award, especially if it's from another designer. As a designer, for me, it is not motivating at all. It's not something that I seek out. But if it is important to another person, another designer that worked on one of our games, absolutely, I'm happy for them. But yeah, we haven't. Some of the game awards, you don't submit them; they're just part of the consideration without any nomination. I've never nominated Stonemaier games for any awards. Even though we end up on certain lists, it never comes from a nomination from me. It's just not something that is motivating for me. And I think it is important to other people. I value that. I think other people are motivated by that, do feel really good by that. And I don't want to get in the way if they are excited about it and want to submit their games for those considerations. Congrats, by the way, for those who it is important to, for those who won the some of the awards for the Golden Geeks. I saw Sky Team on there a lot. I really enjoyed Sky Team. It was neat to see them get a lot of awards. And I saw Jamey got selected a number of times for those awards. George said, I forgot to mention this. Area says that their favorite dark chocolate is the Meiji brand black chocolate. I'll have to get that in Japan. And that ties into the next question as well, because I do love Meiji chocolate. George says his Japan trip is getting closer. No, my Japan trip is getting closer and closer. That is true. I am very excited about it. Trying to plan a little bit more of it. Still trying to brush up my Japanese. George says that he's going to Norway this year. That's lovely. Norway was one of the 4 countries that I saw featured on a show recently. Conan O'Brien Must Go. It's a 4-episode series on HBO where Conan O'Brien, a comedian here in the U.S., goes to Norway, Thailand, Argentina, and the last episode is Ireland. I haven't watched that one yet, but yeah, it looked like Norway is a beautiful country. Chad says yard and garage sales are picking up here in his area. Do you enjoy garage sailing? Garage sailing? What do you look for? I haven't been to a garage sale in a long time, but I've had fun at the times that I have gone. So no, I haven't done that in a long time, but I hope you have fun doing it. While it's on my mind, let me bring up today's question of the day. Today's question of the day is, what was the last game that you can think of, or your favorite game, if you can think of your favorite game for this category, that the unboxing experience of a game, you unboxing the game, not you watching an unboxing video, but the unboxing experience of a game was just really, really delightful for you. Whether it's something personal, actually, it can be personal, but don't make it about a game that you published or you designed. Make it about a game from someone else, but something about the design of the game itself, the something about the unboxing experience just stood out to you as being particularly delightful. Let me know the game, and if you can recall what specifically made it so delightful for you, I'd love to hear about that today. George says that this is actually the first Stonemaier t-shirt. That makes sense. Yeah, given that there's only 9 published games on the shirt, that does make sense. So that would be 4 or 5 years old, I think, at this point. I talked about memorable games earlier, and Chad brings up The Rise of Fenris. I'm glad to hear that, given that like memorable moments was exactly what I designed that expansion around with Ryan. YouTube user says, will you ever release older promo packs for Rolling Realms? We try to keep them in print in general. So there are a few that are out of stock. We are remaking them in time for Rolling Realms Redux. Or possibly an Essentials promo packs that has a selection of older, no longer available promo packs. So we're not going to do that, but we are reprinting the older promo packs. So they'll be available individually on our web store at the same release of Rolling Realms Redux. I think there's only around 7 of them that are sold out, that just sold out, and we need to make more of them. But yeah, that's coming up soon. So in about 2 months, they'll be back in stock. Emma mentions a werewolf experience. So those big, large group bluffing games can lead to some memorable moments. Paige says she's playing a 5-player game of Sushi Go when we're scoring the final round, and the first 4 players all got the same score. The final player scored a single point above us all. That is memorable. Yeah, I like that. Like that sometimes even the act of scoring a game can lead to those memorable moments. David mentions the game Shogun, which I still haven't played, but I need to play. It was a game where my friend Bob and I were allied against my friend Ray. Bob was going to make a move that made him uncomfortable. I told him not to go there. He said he was going to go there anyway. He attacked, managed to walk through my territory, and eliminated me from the game. Ray, it turns out, had convinced him he could win with that move. Ray proceeded to clear the board and win. Bob and I were both laughing about this game even 2 years later, and had the battle cry, "Never forget," I think is going to be the last word there. I see a lot of wonderful comments here. Let's see. Trevor talks about tabletop RPGs, his dwarf being severely poisoned on the verge of death. Yeah, I see some great answers to this. They're a little bit longer stories. I'm not going to read them all here, but Alan mentions one from Betrayal Legacy. Daniel says, what helps you decide whether or not to do a reprint of the game? So in general, our philosophy is our general philosophy is to keep stuff in stock. So for the most part, we keep almost all of our products in stock, or we try to. Sometimes they sell out faster than we expected, and then we need to reprint them. And the decision there is how much demand is there for the product. So oftentimes there's no question. We run out of stock of Wingspan, we make more Wingspan. But sometimes it's a game that maybe took a few years to sell through the previous printing, and then we have to decide, is there demand, or when is there demand for a new printing? And the main way that we gauge that is through the number of back in stock requests that we receive on our web store. We do look at wish listed items a little bit, but the back in stock trumps that. And we also gather information from distributors and retailers. So if a distributor comes to us and says, hey, you haven't made, Euphoria has been out of stock for a while. I don't think it is right now, but if they say that and they say, we want 750 copies of that, and we think we have to make a minimum of 1,000, ideally a minimum of 1,500 units of a game for a reprint, or any product for a reprint. And so we'll then say, okay, you want 750. That's pretty close. Let's see if there's enough demand on our back in stock request to bump that up to at least 1,000, and that will justify a new printing. Tim says, how do you decide quantities of the 2 versions of the expansion? Do you think more Ironclad people will upgrade? I don't know. I mean, upgrading isn't really an option in this case. So we're catering this expansion largely to people who already have expeditions. We did not think the target audience for this expansion was people who haven't already bought into expeditions. And so we gauge demand largely based on the people who subscribe to the Expeditions and Scythe newsletter and the Expeditions Facebook group. That was the main way that we gauge demand for the Ironclad edition. So it is very much a guessing game based on that number. We made many more copies than the number of people who subscribed to that newsletter. But yeah, it's a guessing game for that. And the standard version is a guessing game for the retailers and distributors. Although I think we do generally make, for Expeditions, at least at the beginning, we did make the Ironclad available to retailers. And so we're doing the same for the Ironclad version of the expansion as well. In fact, I think there was a poll that I posted for people in the Expeditions and Scythe newsletter a while ago asking how likely they were to buy the expansion and which version they wanted. So we definitely used that survey data. Ray has a story about Risk Legacy here that was particularly memorable for him. We have some stories. I definitely have some stories about that as well. Looking forward to seeing Tim at Geekway. I see a bunch of people posting about Geekway. Alan mentioned Arkham Horror as a memorable moment. Talking about a little bit about memorable moments in games today. And also I asked the question about delightful unboxing experiences and what made that experience of you unboxing a game particularly delightful. Some games that I played recently. I played Tokaido Duo for the first time. I played the Isle of Cats twice in a row on Mother's Day. That was Megan's pick for Mother's Day. And she crushed me in the second game. We had a very close first game of the Isle of Cats. Love that game. I played Libertalia Winds of Galecrest and For Sale at game night this past Wednesday. And then I played a few digital games. I like every now and then playing a digital game for an hour or so to learn from it, especially if it has a connection to tabletop gaming or feels a little bit like a tabletop game. I played 3 games recently that feel that way. One was Carto, a tile placement, tile manipulation game of exploration. I played Fallout Shelter, especially since we're starting to watch the new Fallout show. And I played a little bit of a game called Dice Legacy, a dice placement town building game called Dice Legacy. I'm basically going through my list of games that I've bought at a discount on Steam and trying to actually play through those games on that list. Also, yeah, that's what I've been playing recently. Let me know if you've played anything particularly fun recently. I enjoyed all of these games that I played. Mark mentions my Mother's Day post. Mother's Day was this past Sunday. I mentioned that Megan and I played the Isle of Cats to celebrate. I, of course, called my mom and had a good chat with her. And I did a post kind of in honor of my mom on Monday on the Stonemaier Games blog, if you want to check that out. Mark mentions that post, and he says, there's huge value in seeing the world through others' eyes. Strikes me the most. So thank you, Mark, for saying that. And I think the example I use there in the post is that my mom was a huge advocate of us hosting homestay students from other countries when we were growing up. So we had multiple people from Japan, from France, and I think 1 or 2 people from Mexico stay with us for a matter of weeks or months during the school year, typically when I was growing up. And it was a out of the country homestay for them. For us, it was learning about people from around the world, different cultures from around the world. And that was incredibly impactful, I think, on me. I don't even think I fully realized the impact of that, but just having a stranger in the house that we became close with, is a stranger in many, many ways, backgrounds, perspectives, cultures, stay with us in the house, and we got to learn from them. I'm curious if people still do that. Like I don't have kids. I think it would be weird for us to have a homestay student, given that we don't have kids. But any of you with kids, have you ever hosted someone from a different country or been hosted? Maybe when you were growing up, were you hosted? I did it in Japan. I was hosted by 2 different families when I studied abroad in Japan, and it was really neat to see their culture in their house and also host their kids in our house when I was young. Andre says that he recently played Expeditions. Definitely the place to talk about that. A few times solo and once 2-player. He loved it. Thank you so much for saying that, Andre. I'm excited to see what you think about the expansion when we start revealing it next Wednesday. Patrick says that one of his most memorable moments was a competitive moment, a tournament moment, taking second in the 2014 Australian National Board Game Championships in Dominion. That's huge, second overall. And that was like at the peak Dominion time, 2014. He's heading to Australia for a month this summer to visit his granddaughter. Our summer, their winter, it sounds like. Hopefully their winter is it's nice in the wintertime in Australia. So for my question about incredible unboxing experiences, yeah, I want to start writing these down. David mentions Imperial. I have not played that one, but I have a friend who has this. So maybe I need to play that one. Daniel mentions Mechs versus Minions. I agree. That was an incredible game to unbox. Rocky says when he first started to get big collector's editions, Suburbia, he loved the trays. You know, a couple of these have beautiful game trays. Game trays has really made a huge impact on the unboxing experience of games. I remember this from Wasteland Express. That had some beautiful trays, beautiful layout. Wasteland, I think that's the name. Express Delivery Service, I think was the name. Chad enjoyed the unboxing for a smaller game. Caper Europe also had beautiful game trays, I believe. Yeah, Caper Europe. Hopefully I can keep up with all these beautiful, delightful unboxing experiences. Kevin mentions An Age Contrived was his most recent experience. Did the Founders Edition and had the customized box lid, which is 100% unique to me, and his gaming friends thought it was cool. Yeah, that's really neat that they were able to do that. Having these customized messages catered to you specifically on your box. An Age Contrived. I was delighted in that game as I was punching the punch boards, and I discovered that they had magnets in them. That was really, really cool. Jeff says he enjoys unboxing every game, but he really thought that Parks and Trails were particularly satisfying and delightful to unbox. Kieran mentions Eclipse 2nd Edition was an all of each little storage solution and how everything fitted into the box as well as component quality, price justified by the inserts. A lot of mention of inserts as tied to the unboxing experience here. That's a good takeaway for me as a publisher. Austin mentions the Wingspan nesting box. Thank you, Austin, for doing that. That's another one that was designed as a giant insert organizational structure for Wingspan. Chad says Unmatched. The Unmatched games give him the same feels. Some great mentions here. Sorry, I'm writing them all down here. Daria mentions Reviving Kathmandu. Yeah, no wasted space. Absolutely. That's something that we see in the, not the Caper games, Burgle Brothers. No wasted space in those games too. But Reviving Kathmandu, I still have that one on my shelf. So yeah, I like the idea of no wasted space. Blue Falcon Board Gaming mentions Dodo's Riding Dinos Dodo Dash. Fantastic insert organizer, great minis and components, beautiful gold foil board. I love that. Gold foil looks really great in games, especially when it's in unexpected places, like not just on the front of the box, but also on cards, on tiles. So this is a long name to write out. Dodo's Riding. I'll truncate it there for myself. Erith says this may be recency bias, but that's okay. Harmonies, I remember being enamored by how the box was designed. So the deck of cards and cubes were kept in their own slots, but kept in place with the same folding lid. That's cool. Yeah, I haven't gotten to play Harmonies yet, but I do want to play that, maybe at Geekway. I think two games weren't entirely on my radar when I made my Geekway list. Harmonies, I feel like there's one other one too that I need to try. But yeah, Harmonies, and what was the other game recently that did this? Oh, not a recent game, but I'm thinking of Mysterium Park. Really nicely organized in a way that impressed me. Valerie says Expedition for her. She has the Ironclad edition, and I remember getting it and being so excited. The design of the mechs and how heavy they were, and then the journal entry. Valerie was the one who discovered that the journal entries were different in each copy of Expeditions, and she kind of helped people realize that there were 20 different journal entries and helped compile them. So Valerie, I'm honored that you'd mentioned Expeditions there. I will write that down. Ray mentions, so we're talking about, if you're coming out this live, we're talking about favorite, most delightful unboxing experiences of games and what made those delightful. Ray mentioned Parks as well. Parks got another mentioned, and Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Jaws of the Lion. Absolutely. Brian mentions fantastic factories, instructions including putting the leftover punch board under the insert, making the game fit just right in the box. Yeah, that's something that we've tried to do a little bit at Stonemaier Games for particular games. Because oftentimes those punch boards take up a lot of space and you don't really need them, but then things can float around in the box. So if you put them under the insert, you can bring the insert up to the top level of the box. So yeah, Fantastic Factories, one of my favorite engine building games. Fantastic Factories. Chris mentions Marvel Dice Throne. Absolutely have that on my shelf. Yeah, that's a beautiful, the composition of that is really incredible. He says each character had a slot and they were color-coded and it felt like I was opening up a top secret suitcase or something. It does feel like that. Absolutely. I can totally hear that, Chris. So that's Marvel Dice Throne. Let's see. Miles says, I still remember when we played Pursuit of Happiness and I went for the strategy of no job and pulled out the win. That was fun. I remember playing that at my old condo with you, Miles. I'm impressed that you can remember that so specifically, but yeah, that's great. Paige said she enjoyed unboxing Leaf, a beautiful tile placement game with tiles that are shaped like leaves. She says, was a treat as I slowly understood how the tuck box system worked and how there was no plastic. Stardew Valley was, so this is kind of in contrast to these insert games. You're right, it is almost a minor miracle when you can have a beautifully organized game that doesn't use plastic. And also, Paige mentioned Stardew Valley, that does have an insert. I like those examples there, Paige. Thank you. Suzanne also mentions Leaf. There was no plastic, and the publisher Weird City Games included beautiful tuck boxes for the components. Yeah, it looks like Susanna's comment came through at the same time as Paige's. Mark says his unboxing his first Kickstarter-backed project, Solani, memorable because it was his first, and it turned out just like it was posted on Kickstarter. Abstract goodness, Solani. I haven't heard much about that one. Patrick mentions Grim Forest here. Yeah, Grim Forest, beautiful organization and use of inserts in that game. And let's see, Escape Plans. It was glorious and very exciting, probably because I did much research and prepped their decision about Escape Plan. Joshua says, did I miss an announcement for Expeditions expansion? I'll show it one more time since Joshua showed up late and other people might as well. So I did reveal the name of the expansion for Expeditions, which is Gears of Corruption. You can see there is an Ironclad edition. There's also a standard version with non-metal mechs. And the one thing I revealed about this expansion is that there are 2 new mechs in the expansion. The rest I will reveal next Wednesday. Mark says that Tapestry was particularly memorable for him because he was still new to the hobby and decided to get this complex game on sale so early on his journey. Was mesmerized by the landmark miniatures. That was certainly the effect that we were going for there, Mark. I'll add that here. Tapestry. Philippe says, is it possible to buy the games from the Stonemaier Games website in another language? I appreciate you asking, but no, we only publish the English language versions of our products. Everything else is licensed. All the other languages are licensed to other publishers, and they get to sell them how they wish on their web stores, through retailers, distributors, directly, crowdfunding, things like that. Very rarely crowdfunding for our localization partners, but no, you can't get that stuff from our web store. Emma mentions the fancy version for Let's Go to Japan. The ceramic bowls were amazing, as well as the little theme extras like washi tape and the luggage tag. Yeah, I got the Kickstarter version, but the non-fancy version, and it was still very nice to unbox. But I have seen in person and in photos the very fancy version. I can imagine that was really, really nice to unbox. Ian talking about memorable moments from My Little Scythe. He says a player 4 got the 4th star and triggered the end game. Player 5 got the 4th star. Player 1 got 3rd and 4th. Player 3 got the 4th star. Wow, that's a lot of players getting the 4th star in that last round. Joshua also mentions Let's Go to Japan. I don't know how often in this list, I do a list about this, that I'll mention the deluxe versions of games all that often, but maybe I will if that's like the primary version of the game. I wouldn't say that's the primary version of the game for Let's Go to Japan. But it's still a special experience, and yeah, still maybe worth mentioning. Ian mentions Marvel Champions. Was giddy when unboxing and loved the first play solo. Rocky says, unboxing Portal games used to be a lot more fun when they'd hide little ninja art in random places, such as the backside of the insert or something, always fun. Yeah, they are famous for this. I actually had this in a video about Imperial Settlers. There's a little Easter egg that you can find under the insert of just two little characters printed on the box talking to each other. It's really, really cute if you have Imperial Settlers, an earlier version of it. Julio says, life has been busy for his group and we haven't had a chance to get games to the table. What's the longest you've gone without playing board games? That's a good question. What is the longest that I've gone without doing it? Maybe a week. I mean, even before I had a weekly game night, I was hosting a weekly poker night for many, many years. And in college, we were playing Hearts. You know, I didn't play a lot of games when I studied abroad in Japan. So like my junior year of college, way back in, what was it, the year 2000, or 2001. It was 2001. I don't think I played many games that year. I did design a game for a class when I was there for fun, but I don't think I played many games when I was in Japan. So it could have been months that I was there that I didn't play a game. Rocky also mentioned Zoo Tycoon as an unboxing experience. Melissa also mentioned Let's Go to Japan. Lots of people mentioning that special unboxing. Jerry says, talking about Japan, do you still keep in touch with the people that you met during homestay? You know, I have fallen out of touch with them, unfortunately. I've not done a good job of keeping in touch with many of my friends from Japan, unfortunately. Yeah, that's entirely on me. I think we're like friends on Facebook, but we haven't talked all that often in a long, long time. I'll add Zoo Tycoon, which I haven't played, but Rocky mentions it here. Zoo Tycoon as a special unboxing experience. Looks like I'm not too far behind on comments today, about 10 minutes behind. Let me see if there's anything else that I wanted to cover before I just focus on you today. Some stuff that I've watched recently. We rewatched the Barbie movie and really enjoyed it again. It's still an incredible movie. I love the Barbie movie. It is so good. We watched the movie Unfrosted on Netflix, which is a very silly movie about kind of an alternate history of how Pop-Tarts came to be. It's very silly, very fun. We laughed a lot while watching it. We watched the movie 65, which wasn't exactly what I expected. It's kind of a dinosaur movie combined with some sci-fi, has Adam Driver in it. It was pretty good. And we just finished watching Deal or No Deal Island, not a movie, a TV show, Deal or No Deal Island, and really enjoyed it. I think they're making this season 2. I think they did a really good job with season 1. I look forward to seeing what they do with season 2. You can check that out on Peacock here in the US. Also did a video. I mentioned Susanna's in the comments here. She mentioned Leaf a few minutes ago. I did a video this past weekend. Sunday video was about my favorite art in games. And not just my favorite art in games, but also Susanna's favorite art in games. We each contributed our top 5 to that list. So if you are enamored by beautiful art in games, you might check out that list and see what you would add to it. Let's see. Marlene says, I know for some it was overwhelming, talking about unboxing experiences in games. She says, I felt like I was opening a chest of endless treasures when I unboxed the Everdell Complete Collection. That sounds amazing. Yeah, I can see how that might be overwhelming too, but I'm glad you had a great experience with it. Chad also asked if I stay in contact with the families that I stayed with in Japan. As of now, I've fallen out of touch with them, but I did stay in touch with them for a couple of years, especially after they came to us or we came to them, and we stayed in touch enough so that the reverse happened, where if a student stayed with us, then I often would then go stay with them afterward as well. John says, will the awesome Expeditions playmat still be cool with the expansion content? Yeah, it's still completely consistent with the expansion content. Definitely still cool with that content. Steve mentions Wonderland's War with all the premium upgrades, such an amazing package. Yeah, so a lot of premium games being mentioned here. Totally relevant, though, for this, because publishers always have the option of making a premium or deluxe version. So I'll mention Wonderland's War here. Ian also mentions Let's Go to Japan. Nice recent one. Parks, I see mentioned here. Let's Go to Japan from Luke as well. Mark is waiting on his copy. Hasn't gotten his yet. George says he's excited to play Viticulture World tomorrow, the real thing since the expansions. Playing for the first time since he play tested the expansion. We'll play a relaxing game in 3-player. Yeah, George, I hope you have fun with that. Yeah. Jeff says, what are games that you most enjoyed unboxing? So really, this is a new to me topic. I haven't thought much about it, Jeff. So I wanted to get some ideas from all of you. I'm trying to think of some games. I'll need to look at my shelf. I'll have to do that. So that's why you often see many of the games repeated on my list, because I often look at my shelf of games to see the games that really impress me. I did mention Mysterium Park. That's one that I'm impressed by how much they packed into that box. And Role Player Adventures was really exciting to unbox. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I'll have to take a good look at my collection to see. I mentioned Marvel Dice Throne. Chris mentioned that earlier. That's definitely up there. Yeah, I'll have to look through. I'll have to look through some of the other ones. I see games like Clank Catacombs, and I'm wondering, when you unbox a game, do you look through all the tiles or cards, or do you let them be a surprise when you actually play the game? And I typically try to wait for the surprise. I don't want to know the different cards in the game until I discover them in the game. I love that moment of discovery of, oh, wow, I haven't seen that lion before in Ark Nova, or I haven't seen that tile. I'm actually feeling like I discovered it in Clank Catacombs, things like that. But I know some people really like to look through every card and kind of relish in every card, knowing that maybe you won't play it for a while, which I totally get that too. So how do you approach games when you are unboxing them? Do you really look through all the components in detail, or do you save those surprises for when you're actually playing? Damon J mentioned the idea of unboxing the game over time, like in Charterstone, a legacy game where you feel like that unboxing experience is extended over many plays. I've heard Rob Davio, the designer of many different legacy games, talk about this, how this is such an important moment in games, the unboxing, the opening of something new. That's one of the reasons that he started thinking of legacy games and the idea of unlocks in games, to extend that over multiple plays. I love that you mentioned that, and I'm going to have a special mention of legacy games for that reason when I talk about this. Ian says that most recent was Libertalia, and the insert just made it easy to replay. I'm glad that was the result. Yeah, we tried to divide up each player's components in Libertalia to the Winds of Wheelcrest, our version of it, to make it easier to play. Merlin's Manor mentions that I love cats and having the place cat here set up on the inside of the box lid. So this is an example of something simple that I think a publisher can do. Do something with the box. You don't even have to worry about the insert. Maybe don't do an insert, but have something special in the box, something memorable on that box that you discover when you open the box. You can't see it from the outside. I like that. I'm running out of room on my list here. I'll start a new sticky note. Isle of Cats. You all are awesome for thinking of all these great examples. Jeremy mentions Ancient World. He bought it used and found it had deluxe components from Kickstarter. One of the main reasons I decided to also back Creature Caravan, which I'm excited about. I had that coming from GameFound, Red Raven Games via GameFound. So yeah, Ancient World. I don't think I've played that one. I played most of Ryan's games, but not all of them. John also mentioned the Everdell. Sorry, I didn't write that down before because I was running out of room. Everdell Complete Collection. Valerie says there's something to be said about book to game ones, like Red Rising. There's something special about going through the cards and seeing your favorite characters. That might be an example where I do look through some of the cards. She says, I thought EO was so perfect. And yeah, I like that comparison of games with intellectual properties where you want to see, especially with books where you haven't necessarily seen what these characters look like before. You want to see what they look like in the game. So I'll mention Red Rising here. Rocky says, mind management. There's just so many secrets and Easter eggs to discover, and I know we still have so much to find. Yeah, lots of stuff hidden within, all around that box, really. Another great reason for including Easter eggs in different parts of the games. We include a lot of them in Stonemaier Games, but not so much on the box usually. Usually they're on the cards or hidden on the map, things like that. Austin says that he saw Fall Guy per my recommendation. Thank you so much for hearing my recommendation and loved it. We still need to watch Barbie. I'm glad you enjoyed Fall Guy. I think it's going to fall off the radar. Didn't do well at the box office in the second week either, but really, it's a really, really good action movie and good romance, good humor. I definitely recommend seeing it in the theater if you have the chance to do so, to see Fall Guy in the theater. Emma says that Let's Go to Japan has a special place in her collection for her, as it was announced for the day that her and her husband paid for our first trip to Japan. So it was a definite back for us. That's awesome, Emma. I think I may have seen you mention this trip before. It could be someone else. But I know that we are using it to at least partially plan our trip to Japan. And I'm curious if you end up using the game for that purpose as well. Michael mentions not factory. The insert had a special place for everything, and you could remove each player compartment for use during gameplay. Not factory. I'm not familiar at all with not factory, Michael. But thank you for sharing it. And Michael mentioned that most Lacerda games are premium from the go. And yeah, that's something actually we aim for at Stonemaier Games too, that we want all of our games, even when there aren't two different versions of them, for the game to feel premium and special. At least have a few components that feel premium or special. Joshua says, I would say any big box is a pleasure to unbox, partially because of the fun of reboxing the base game and expansions into that's an opportunity to rebox. Viticulture and Wingspan are great examples. We do have the Viticulture wine crate. Angelo just got Wormspan this week and loved it. Their first Stonemaier game. That's awesome. Thank you for making Wormspan your first Stonemaier game. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. John says, any juicy new info on Vantage that you can tease us with? I do continue to playtest the game. It's in late playtesting right now, where we're just kind of finding little things at this point to adjust and make a little bit better. I don't really have a teaser, but I think my next design diary post, which I'm going to start working on soon, because it took me a couple days to write the last one. So I'm going to start working on that soon. I think it will be about the art and the world building, like how we actually created this world, which to me is at least fascinating. I haven't picked, in every update, I'm going to do something about the story of creating the game, and then a very specific mechanical example from the game, so you can learn as we go how the game actually plays. I haven't figured out what example I will use for that yet, but it might be hopefully tied to that art and world building in some way. Jeremy says, any favorite games, favorites based on true story movies? I see. I recently watched Megan Levy and Mosul. It's a great question, Jeremy. Trying to think of the most recent one. I can't think of any favorites off the top of my head. I'm sure there are out there. But there was one that I watched. I'm going to completely forget about it. I can't remember the name of it. Not helpful at all, but I did watch one recently that was loosely based on a true story. I'm watching the TV show The Great right now, which I think is very loosely based on history. But also, I think they took a lot of creative license with the show about Catherine the Great. But I'm enjoying the historical context of it, at least. I see a few answers from people about whether they look through the game components in detail when they unbox the game, or if they wait for those surprises. Foldy mentioned unboxing the Rise of Fenris, which is a slow unboxing. That's one expansion that we really don't want people to unbox when they open the box at first. We want them to see a lot of stuff in it, but not open those tuck boxes. And people do anyway. And we often, one of the oddest things actually about this expansion is that we have people who open one of the boxes and think that something is missing, but they don't open any of the other boxes. It's maybe the biggest surprise for me in product design ever, because I figure if someone opens one of the boxes that they're going to open all the boxes, at least before requesting a replacement part. But we consistently get a request for one specific component in the Rise of Fenris because people open one of the tuck boxes before they've even played the game, think that something is missing, and then ask us for that replacement parts. I'm sure we've sent hundreds of replies to people saying, you've already opened this box, so go ahead and open this other box and see that you are not actually missing this thing. Something to keep in mind. If you ever play the Rise of Fenris for Scythe, don't unbox anything. And if you do, you'll probably think there's something that's missing that is not actually missing. Jeff mentions opening new card packs for living card games, or even collectible card games. Yeah, I love opening a pack of Magic cards. It just, when we do the draft, even though I know I'm only getting one of those cards and I have to pass all the rest of the cards to the next player, that is just something magical about opening that pack of cards that I really love. I love the smell of it. I love the smell of the cards. I love seeing what's inside that pack. I love that. And it even works for living card games when you know exactly what's going to be in that pack. Marlene says, one non-deluxe game I really enjoyed unboxing was Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. It was the start of me exploring the world with some things to see right away, but more promise to be revealed. I like that a lot, Marlene, that it showed the promise of the game as you were unboxing without actually spoiling anything in it. So I mentioned Sleeping Gods. Susanna says, I've been playing through the Arnak Missing Expedition campaign, and the way they indicated how the deck was constructed for the campaign when you first opened the box was great. I agree. That was a really, really clever deck construction there in that expansion. Jeff, so we were talking about opening packs of cards. That was what we were going for in Rolling Realms. So 3 of the new promos that we have that you're probably receiving now: Dice Throne, Eminent Domain, and Terraforming Mars. These packs, like, even though you know that there's 6 nearly identical cards in here, you know exactly what's in here, there's still something special about opening the pack. That's just wonderful. Yeah. I kind of wish we had thought of earlier. We put the tear tag up here, so you kind of ruin the pack when you open it with the tear tag. You can just cut it open with scissors and not have to do that. But we didn't realize until later that there was a better way to let players open these packs with a horizontal tear tag that doesn't ruin the packing. There's no reason to really keep the pack at that point, but it is the only place that you see the art for the game that inspired the promo pack in Rolling Realms. G Money says each of the Horrified games was fun to unbox. Each board has a different message on its back. That's cool. I've played Horrified, but I haven't unboxed it. George mentions the Wanderer's Guide from artist Andrew Bosley. He says it was a nice surprise for him. Eager for it to come for years. Premium Atlas illustrated by Andrew Bosley. I know you have it as well, but it's difficult to bring to the table. Yeah, it is. I haven't got to actually use mine yet, but I did look through it. I bought it partially because I thought it might inspire some ideas for Vantage. Carol's popping in briefly. I'm excited to play some games with Carol at Geekway. She says, hoping to play games with people like Geekway this weekend. So if you want to play games with some of the wonderful people from the mill, Carol and Molly will be at Geekway to the West over the next 4 days. And I think I'll be playing at least The Witcher with Carol and probably Rurik too. I'm hoping to play both. They've been 2 games that I've been hoping to play with Carol for a long time. So yeah, hopefully if either of those games interest you, feel free to drop by and maybe play those games with us at Geekway to the West over the next couple days. Chad says, and I also wanted to mention before I forget, if you're going to Geekway and you want to play disc golf with me and some other wonderful people, the plan is to play at a place called Laurel Park in St. Louis. It's about 5 minutes away from the convention center. It's a 9-basket course at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, unless it rains, and then it will be on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock instead. We're hoping to make it last no more than an hour and a half. So we'll change the format to ensure that we can move at a fairly brisk pace that morning. But yeah, you're absolutely welcome to join us. Even if you're not attending Geekway and you just want to play disc golf with us, 9 a.m. Laurel Park in St. Louis on Saturday, unless it rains. Anyway, Chad had a question. Does one of your disc golfing buddies have a hacky sack in their bag? My buddies and I like to play hacky sack if we have to wait for the group ahead of us. We don't have that, but we probably should. That's a good idea. Darius says, do you ever playtest in your Discord server? I would like to join. Darius, I very much appreciate you asking that. We do some playtesting on Discord, very limited. I do most of my playtesting in person on the tabletop. But there are a couple levels to get there, really. We have Stonemaier ambassadors, and among Stonemaier ambassadors, I have a certain test that I send out to see if they will be the type of playtester that I think will be really great. And so if you get that far, if you become a playtester, then you might hear from us if we have an available project for playtesting. So there are a couple steps in between to become a Stonemaier playtester. And really right now, I will say we are very fortunate to have over 100 active lead playtesters who do an incredible job. So I'm not necessarily actively looking for new playtesters, but I know there are a lot of game designers and game publishers out there who are actively looking for them. So if it's just the experience of playtesting that you really enjoy, I appreciate you asking and can keep asking that to other publishers and other designers, because they may not have as big of a built-in group of playtesters as we have at Stonemaier Games. Yeah, we're very fortunate to have that. Chad says, is there a fun and creative way for the Stonemaier Games community to name the planet featured in Vantage? Chad, I appreciate you asking that. I think those types of things can be fun, but for Vantage in particular, for naming planets, I think it's a tricky thing because there is an aspect of colonization to an outsider naming something that isn't yours. And so it's important for me that the planet itself, I don't want to spoil anything here, but the name comes from the planet itself, not from outsiders. I think that's, it's our human nature to put our names on other things that aren't ours. And I know that isn't the intent here. I know the intent is to do something fun here, but I want to avoid that specifically, given that this is a planet in particular, and that humankind, we have a very scattered, I want to say almost dirty history of naming things that aren't ours, and even putting our own names on things that aren't ours, animals, locations, cities, schools, things like that. So I want the planet to take ownership of the name, and I do have a name for the planet now that I plan on using. Yeah. Mark says, as a board game designer, would you rather play a lot of different games, popular or not, or a few popular titles to learn about what works and what doesn't work in game design? I'd say a little bit of both. I think it's really good and healthy to go deep into games, to play a game more than once. Not out of obligation, but because I want to play that game more than once, and I want to continue to learn from it and go deeper into it. But in general, I mostly play games once or twice. I play many, many games once or twice. I try to learn something from that play, and I post about it on YouTube, and I process it. I hear what others think about it, and yeah. So I would say maybe 80-20. 80% play a lot of different things, learn from a lot of different games, especially outside of your wheelhouse as a designer, or even as a player. Play things that you don't expect to be for you, and then 20% go deeper into it. That ratio definitely depends on the person, though. And I appreciate you asking that from a game design perspective specifically. Tim says, were you to do it again, would you put a slip of paper indicating where the missing part was? That's a good question, Tim. So I guess there is a product design solution for what I mentioned for in the Rise of Fenris, which is that some people open one, even though the game says from unboxing, don't open anything in this box until the game tells you to, that some people open something and feel like something else is missing before they play the game. So would that be a solution for it? Maybe, Tim. Yeah, I guess. And we could still do it again because we still actively reprint this expansion, The Rise of Fenris. Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's if there's a pattern. I mean, obviously, it's not. You can't blame the consumer if it's hundreds of people making the same mistake. Eventually, that comes back to us as the producer of the game. That our warning on the box isn't enough for this problem. So yeah, maybe that's a good solution. Corey from Blue Falcon says, anyone coming to the Geekway, come find me at the Prototype Alley early Friday evening. I'll have his 2 games with him. And unfortunately, this is the year that I was hoping to make it to Prototype Alley, but we have other plans for that evening outside of Geekway. So I will be missing Prototype Alley, but I very much look forward, if anyone attends this event, it's a really neat event to see a lot of different games in the prototype stage at Geekway to the West on Friday at 6 o'clock. Go see Corey's game. And if you do play some cool games there, let me know what you played. Maybe I might be interested in them as a publisher. Definitely let me know. Patrick. So Patrick, you're right. I should just name the Vantage Planet Planety McPlanet Face. that is definitely better than the name that I thought of. George says, can Vantage have sealed small packs like Magic the Gathering in the future? Like, can it be sustainable for the game to have such kind of small card packs with parts of the planet and maybe with some characters or something? Curious if it would work. So, George, I've actually kind of said out of the gate that Vantage will not be expanded in any way. This is a complete game, a complete planet out of the box. So it is possible that I will take some of the mechanical systems from the game, because I really do like things like the action system in the game. I might use that in another game. But no, the game itself is complete. The planet, the game, it's a whole planet and everything that you could possibly find in that planet in the box out of the gate. Yeah. Emma says, I had a copy of Viticulture, but I hadn't played with Tuscany Essential. I picked up the collector's chest and started opening everything before realizing that Tuscany was a legacy. Not exactly a legacy. It does have unlocks, but no permanent. Like, legacy is when you have permanent changes that can't be undone. And so Tuscany doesn't have that. You can always put things back in the packets. But the original Tuscany, not Tuscany Essential, but the original Tuscany does have that element of unlocking things as you play. I thought that would be a fun way of unraveling an expansion as you play it. It ended up making that expansion more expensive than Viticulture itself, and that's why I shifted a few of those core elements that people like the most into Viticulture Essential, and then trimmed down Tuscany to the things that people were actually using the most, and that became Tuscany Essential, which is now much more cost-effective than the original Tuscany. Mark says, are there any plans to expand the Jigsaw puzzle line? There are not any plans to do that. It's possible that we'll do that someday if there's interest in that. I'd like to learn from the first experience, but it did take us a while to sell through the original puzzles, and I think some of the puzzles are still in stock. And so that was a sign to me that maybe this isn't a product that, even with Wingspan, our most popular brand, that people aren't excited to see these types of puzzles from Stonemaier Games. So it might be a one-off experiment, but maybe if I know Megan would love to design one again. So if she can think of something that's really outside the box that people might really enjoy, that maybe has a little bit more gamification in it, maybe we would consider it for future publication. Yeah. I think that wraps up for today. Thank you all for joining me for this conversation, for talking about your most memorable moments in gaming. Again, you can check out my channel, my video on our channel if you search for the word memorable. And also your ideas on the most delightful unboxing experiences. That was really helpful. That might influence a future video that I post on this channel. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you have a delicious chocolate of the day or treat of the day, whatever you decide to treat yourself with today. And if you're coming to Geekway, I can't wait to see you Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see you there. Take care. Bye.